So this week's topic of conversation was open house best practices. And Avery, feel free to text us any questions you have as I'm going through this. But one of the questions I would ask both Brent and Avery is, what do you think is the objective of an open house? And I don't know if there's necessarily a wrong or right answer to this question, but I'm kind of curious. Brent and Avery, have you two ever held open houses before?
I'm actually not a real estate agent, so I never had an experience with
Okay.
open house.
How about you,
But
Avery? You ever held an open house? Go ahead and chat it in there for us. Okay, you have. All right, great. So what would you consider as your number one priority or objective in holding an open house? What is the result you're hoping for? What are you looking to get the most out of that open house? Okay, getting your name out there is certainly about that, and thinking about you when they're thinking of real estate. Absolutely, that's definitely one objective. I've seen speaking to other agents, I've heard different answers, such as selling the home you're holding open, but that is as Avery, you probably already know, that's a very long shot at best. What it might, a second alternative it might provide is an opportunity. It's crazy how sometimes neighbors will stop in to see what it is you're selling because they are thinking about selling their home one day. And if you haven't thought about it, the way you pose questions to the people who come through your open house, you might discover that, hey, January of next year, they plan to put their home on the market and they want to see what their competition looks like and how well it shows, et cetera, et cetera. So I would say that's another objective of an open house. If you haven't thought about that, Avery, that's certainly one that you should keep back of your mind thinking about when you meet somebody. Another objective I hear from a lot of agents is trying to find an alternative source for more buyers they can work with. And with the change in the real estate laws these days, finding those buyers and having a follow-up conversation to ultimately, hopefully, put them under a buyer-broker agreement would be another objective of your open house. So there's a couple of ideas that I would throw out there regarding an open house. Another thing I'd like to comment about an open house is there's no tried and true exact science to this. It's more of an art than anything else. And so, Avery, as long as you keep that in mind, it'll help you stay quick on your feet and be able to adapt to whatever the situation is when you're able to have a conversation with somebody. And that's really the objective in an open house, I think, is to have as many detailed conversations with people you meet to find out the reason why they stopped in to look at the home, and B, how you could offer them assistance going forward to your original point. So what next thing I was going to go into was the week of the open house. What are some best practices you should do to help ensure maximum attendance at your open house? And some of these might seem obvious to you, Avery, but I'm kind of curious. I'm going to give you a list of them, and maybe you can give me some ideas on what I'm missing that maybe you're doing that would be a good thing for me to add. But one of them is to be sure in your MLS listing in the public remarks, be sure to mention in the very first line the day and the date and the time when your home is going to be open for the general public to walk through. And that's obviously very key because MLS is sourced out to so many different real estate search engines out there. They will, the general public will pick up on it and see that. So one of the first questions I ask someone who comes into an open house, when they walk through the door, I introduce myself. They generally introduce themselves. And generally the first question I ask is, I'm just curious, how did you happen to find me today? And it's interesting to see from the different things I'm going to lay out what type of marketing I did that brought them into the open house. A lot of times they see it on Zillow or realtor.com or whatever, but they won't know about it unless in that very first line of your listing, say you're having an open house this Saturday on November what would be the 2nd, that you placed in the MLS in the very first sentence of your public remarks, the date, the time, that you're actually going to hold it open. And invariably, a lot of people from different real estate search engines know about it and come in from that very resource right there. I also like to do some different nuances off of that when you announce that. One is if it's a brand new listing, I will kind of give it a little more glamour, and I'll call it the Grand Premier Open House in the very first line of the public remarks in the MLS. So I'll say Grand Premier Open House, Saturday, November 2nd, from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. So other ideas can, you can really have fun with this. It could be about just about anything to make it stand out from the usual dialogue that 99% of the realtors put out there, which is just simply open house, day and time. So I love the Grand Premier if it's a brand new listing. Another thing I like to do in preparation for the open house, which I find very productive, and if you have the time to do it, do it. My assistant will create a sheet. It could be just as simple as the MLS printout of the listing, or you could create something that's a little more enticing, because we generally try to do some kind of function around the open house to entice the neighbors to come by and look. And so I'll walk the neighborhood on a Wednesday or Thursday before the open house, and I will slide into their mailbox or knock on their door and invite them to come to the open house. Some things that I've done in the past to entice folks to come is you might have, this past weekend, we had pumpkin donut holes from a very famous bakery in our area. And that was very mouth-watering to a lot of folks. Well, why am I doing that? Because I don't know if you've heard the statistic. Generally, the source of your buyer for your listing is going to come from somebody in the immediate neighborhood. More likely, it's going to come from your neighborhood than most anywhere else. So it's important that you let the neighbors know that you're holding it open and that you got your arms wide open, and you want them to come by and check it out, because they might have a family member or a friend who's looking, and they might not have any idea that somebody's coming to that you're holding it open. So it's important that they know about it. So that's another thing I like to do in preparation during the week of the open house before the grand premiere, so to speak. Always email your fellow realtors. We do that. We'll blast it out to them. We'll post it on social media, our different ways to get the word out. I will actually, in most cases, I will go to the local realtor offices that are nearest to this listing. I'll pop in with one or two open house flyers, and I'll talk to the business, whoever's at the front desk is typically the office manager. And I will, I'll hand them a sheet, and I'll ask, can you be so kind as to just email this out to I'll say something like, this is a fantastic beach house just came on the market. One of your agents might have a buyer who's looking for it. Could you email this out to your agents in your office for me, if you wouldn't mind? And generally they say, yeah, that's not a problem, whatever. And then I say, well, and thanks for doing that for me. And then I'll hand them here in Florida, I'll hand them a lottery scratch-off ticket. And they could win up to $100 with that lottery scratch-off ticket. And this is my way of saying thanks to you for helping me email this out. Well, what have you done? You've created a sense of obligation on the business manager to follow through and do what you asked, because you gave them something in kind. And I find that works very effectively and really helps get the word out. As I said, I think we email our database, the flyer as well, because we never know who in my top 150 or top 200 clients that I've had business with over the years who might have a family member or friend. So these are all steps I take in preparation for starting on a Tuesday through a Thursday or a Friday if I'm running behind in preparation for the open house on Saturday or Sunday of the upcoming weekend. The day of, and I wish I had a way to post these. I took pictures of them, but the day of the open house, these are some interesting practices that you might consider for your use. So, Avery, when you have an open house, do you post any directional signage away from the open house other than in front of the house saying that you're open? I see you've been just licensed for under a month, so this is going to be very helpful to you. If you haven't ever posted, if you've never used directional signage, this can be very helpful to generating traffic. And it's amazing how many people are traveling nearby that had no idea you were going to be open for that day. And this was kind of a strategy I learned. For a number of years, I worked for an actual real estate auction company. They use colors, and they use colors from stoplights to attract attention. So there'll be yellow signs that will say open house or whatever, real estate for sale, whatever it is you want to put, but typically it's open house with an arrow. And we'll put those yellow signs, which means in the mind of someone driving on a road, caution. So they're subliminally, their brain is keyed into yellow as a caution. And so they will pay attention to the sign, and it'll say open house with an arrow, turn right here. And we'll run those for a good distance down the street before you get to a stop sign or a traffic light that would direct them to your open house. Right at the turning point, then we use a red sign which says open house. And so it's kind of, you're following the same philosophy of what traffic signals have done to us all our lives of driving cars. So I see a lot of people use, their normal company sign saying open house, but it might be a blue color or whatever color their company colors might be, but it won't attract the attention like a yellow sign and a red sign will get. So I highly encourage you to try that one time. I think you'll find how clever that is and helpful in getting people to come to your open house. Another thing that I like to try and do is, so that I have typically in an open house, people will dart in, they walk through it real quick, maybe collect a flyer from you that tells them all the information about the house, and boom, they're gone out the door. And you haven't had a chance to get to know them at all and collect any and have them get to know you. So a couple things I try and do. We always try to have something going on. Like I was talking about the pumpkin donut holes that we passed out this past Saturday in our open house. But things that we've done in the past that have really been clever, that have helped. We have a guitarist we call, and we might have a guitarist there. He might be in college or whatever, and he's looking for a couple of bucks to come. Maybe he's just trying to promote himself for some birthday parties or something in the future. So I've had guitarists out on the covered lanai playing some. It's not loud music, but it's playing music, and people can kind of think that's really cool, and they'll stick around for a while to hear a song or two. The more people you have that gathered in your open house, the more it makes people think, wow, this is a really special place. That's one idea. Another idea we've used several times is if it's summertime. Of course, we're not in summertime now, but in the past, what we've done is we've had somebody with one of those 3-wheel carts maybe parked in the front yard, and they're giving out popsicles. So they give them a popsicle as they're walking in, and they're and again, it's the feeling of you've done something kind for them. They want to do something kind back by sticking around, really checking the home out closely and things like that. So we've given out popsicles. I remember some waterfront properties we've had in the past where I'll go to some of these boat rental companies that are around the nation, and I'll have a boat parked out back at the dock, and I'll invite them to go take a spin in the boat. and see what it would be like to live on the waterfront lifestyle with your own boat in the backyard. And so that's always been really effective. So think of something that would be creative to get people to stick around for a while. It both helps them and it also helps you get to know them better. Another thing that we do is once we've gotten to know them a little bit, we have and I have it here, so I can't display it, but obviously I can show it to you. Obviously, Avery, do you have sign-in sheets? You use a sign-in sheet to try and get some information on your clients? Yeah. Okay, great. So this might be helpful to you. So I don't know if everyone can see this, but this is a stand we put in front of our clipboard with the sign-in sheets. And so every weekend we give away a free Amazon gift card to everyone who registers, and that kind of entices them to go ahead and sign in. Don't ask for everything. We say, you can just give us an email address or just give us a phone number, but some way we can communicate in case you win. And that really helps collect information on your potential future clients, is using something like that. It could be something as simple as a $5 Starbucks card, whatever you want them to come up with that you would offer as an incentive for them to sign in. And I find that that's very, very helpful. There's some other ideas you can pass along to, and again, the whole point of the open house is to create more potential clients in the future, I think. And as I was saying, once you meet them, you want to ask them questions if you can engage them in conversation. You don't want to talk about me. You don't want to talk about how great you are, how great your company is. Definitely want to talk about the home, but I revolve all my questions around what it is that's important to them. So I already mentioned, I said, how did you find me? I might ask the next question. Well, are you looking for a family member, a friend, or are you actually looking for yourself? And so you can kind of zero down as to what was the purpose of their coming out and looking in the home in the first place. If they happen to be looking for themselves, or even if it's for a family member or a friend, you could ask the next question, which might be, well, what's the most important thing you are looking for in your next home, or your family member is looking for in their next home, or your friend, what are they looking for in their next home? So that's a very intuitive question to ask to get them to open up to you a little bit, because what you can offer at the end of the day, and another reason for them to sign in, is I'd be more than happy to send you an email with all of the homes that are for sale in this particular neighborhood, which might help you understand the neighborhood better. And there might be something there that is of further interest to you that you want to take a look at. And a lot of people are intrigued with that. Some people are frustrated with Zillow or Realtor.com. But if they're getting a source directly from you who's an expert, someone they've had a conversation with and they like, then you have a good shot there of creating a friend and hopefully a future client. But that's the biggest thing I could take away from open houses is you just want to create conversations. And you want to but in those conversations, you want to get the visitors to talk about themselves, those future sellers, those future buyers, whoever they might be. If they have a family member or friend, you want them to talk about them and find out what you could send them that they could pass along to that family or friend that would entice them to want to call you up. So I've covered a lot over the time period that we've had. These are some of what I call open house best practices that we use on a consistent basis. The open house we had this past weekend, we had, since we not everyone wants to sign up, obviously, but I like to try and keep every time somebody comes in, I'll just put a dash on a piece of paper to kind of keep track of the numbers. But we had close to 30 groups through, between 28 and 30 groups come through this past weekend. And a lot of good potential there. And it's a little bit of everything. You have some that come from the directional signage. You have some that come from Zillow and Realtor.com because you posted in MLS. You have some that realtors found out about the open house and they brought their clients to come take a look. Sometimes you have realtors who come by themselves because it's funny how many realtors are actually out there looking for a home for themselves as well. So you never know where they're going to come from, but using these best practices that I described, if you will incorporate one or more of those, try one the first week. Next time you hold an open house, try and incorporate two of the ideas we went over, and just keep building off of that. And you'll be shocked at how many people you get to come by and take a look that you can finally get to know and hopefully turn into a client for future business. But it can be very, very effective when you go approach it in the right fashion. So, Brent and Avery, any questions about what we covered today?
No, thank you. Actually, you covered a lot. It really shows your experience and how long have you been a realtor?
I consider myself a dinosaur. I've been doing this for 45 years.
Wow, like there's a lot of little things, even the popsicle, like who can resist a popsicle when it's summer, you know?
Especially when they have kids and they want to stick around longer, because of course we'll give them a second popsicle.
Yeah, that's really simple and yet smart at the same time. Thank you.
Well, if anybody ever wants to, Avery, if you want to reach out to me, Brent, if you ever want to reach out to me, it's as simple as going to Stephen with a PH, Stephen.Williams@exprealty.com. And more than happy to answer any more questions for you, either one of you. And until next time, I wish you, much success between now and the end of the year, and get your goals up and ready for 2025.
Yeah. Thanks, Steve.
All right. Thank you so much, Brent.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Avery.
Bye-bye.
If you'd like more information or to get connected to the Agent Power Huddle, join our free Facebook group. This call was designed for the agents in our EXP organization, but open to any agent from any brokerage. If you're a guest and you're interested in learning more about EXP or our specific resources within the Agent Collective, reach out to the person who invited you to this call to get more info. Produced by the Agent Collective Media Network.